Today's topic, 529 plan to Roth IRA transfers. That's right. The first video for 2024 is going to be a very popular topic, not only for this year, but likely for many years to come until we maybe lose this opportunity. But it's new, it's here, and we're going to walk through it. Short story is you will now be able to transfer money from a 529 plan to a Roth IRA. That is right. 529 plan to a Roth IRA. But hold on, there are lots of rules that you need to follow. So in today's video, we're going to walk through those rules. We're going to walk through some things to keep in mind. And also, I'm going to include one of our famous flow charts that you can pretty much walk through with a simple yes or no to see if you maybe qualify to do this awesome new conversion that we have. So stay tuned. That's all coming up next. All right, the rules. Now, with this being so new, you will catch me looking down at my notes a little bit more than usual, but I also want to make sure I'm giving you the main points here. With this being so new, we also don't know what the Congress rules are compared to what the IRS will also read those rules, right? Let me give you a really good example. I'll probably note this a few times in the video. The one thing we don't have good clarity on yet is what happens if you update a beneficiary on a 529 plan? This is something that's pretty easy to do. You can really do it as many times as you want. But currently, we don't know that when you do that, does it reset a 15-year clock? And the 15-year clock is going to be the first rule we're going to cover, but we don't know that yet. We don't know exactly what that is. Is it going to be that simple that you can just update the beneficiary and then move it over to the Roth IRA? Only time will tell. You maybe we'll get an IRS ruling here or there that'll give us some context. But for now, here's what we got. First two rules are based on timing, meaning how much time have you owned the account and how long has that funding been in the account? So first rule, we're going to call it the 15-year rule. Straightforward, the account has to be open for 15 years. This makes sense that they're not allowing people to just kind of open one up, right, and use it almost as like a workaround back to a Roth IRA in a way. So they want to see the account open for 15 years. So if you're sitting here watching this YouTube video right now and you have someone that could benefit from this strategy, even if you just get the account open, it's kind of like the old Roth IRA rule. I shouldn't say old, it's still very relevant today. We do this all the time. The 5-year rule, where we'll tell some of our retirees, hey, open up the Roth to start your 5-year clock. Even if you don't plan to put a lot of funding in it, you want to get that clock going. Really that same idea here for the 529 plan. We always tell our clients, again, we work with Gen X and Gen Y. So when they're getting ready to have their first child, we'll always say, open the account. Even if you don't have funding goals, just get the account open because people are going to want to gift to it. Grandparents love 529 plans, but get the account open. So first rule that we know of, 15-year rule. So get the account open. You got to hit that 15-year mark first. The second rule is also timing based, and it's called what I'm going to call the 5-year rule, right? So this one's going to say the funding has to be in there for 5 years. So even if you had the account open for 15 years, you can't just throw money in and then transfer right to the Roth. It needs to be in there for 5 years before it can move to the Roth. And my view of this is Congress is really just coming in and saying, hey, this is not a workaround to get money into a Roth. This is like, hey, you overfunded your 529 plan. You were a good person for putting money into this, being proactive. Now we're going to give you a chance to kind of move those funds over so that you don't ever have to pull the funds out and worry about some of the penalties that come with the 529 plan. So first two big ones, 15 years open, 5 years for funding. All right, here's where I'm going to have to look down a little bit more. First one here on outside of timing. It needs to be the same person. So this was the note that I put at the very start there, meaning that the beneficiary of the 529 plan also has to be the owner of the Roth IRA. It shouldn't be too difficult. The one thing that we don't know yet is what happens if you change the beneficiary, right? What if I change it from my oldest son to my middle son? Does that reset my 15-year clock? We don't really know yet. And that's one of the tricky part because 15 years is not a short period of time, right? That's a very long period of time. So currently as it reads, same beneficiary, because remember on a 529 plan, you can be the owner of it and then your child or your grandchild would be the beneficiary. So they also then need to be the owner of their Roth IRA. And if they're a minor, this would be something where you look towards like a custodial Roth IRA or Roth IRA for minors. All right, so that's the next rule. There are limits. There's 2 limits. So we had 2 timing rules. Now we have 2 limit rules. The actual dollar amount limits are this. Total lifetime, 35,000. So this isn't one where you can like crank money into the Roth. It's $35,000 is the current lifetime maximum. Here's why lifetime is an important word. You are still limited to the Roth IRA limits for that given year. So let's take 2024, for example. Current Roth IRA contribution based on, we're going to assume a younger age here, is $7,000, right? We're not going to add in a $1,000 catch up. So $7,000 is the most you can do in the year 2024, right? So that's important. Then on top of that, don't forget that that owner of the Roth IRA, I keep thinking in terms of minors, but technically they could be older if they had a 529 plan for a long time, right? Also needs to have earned income. So let's just use this example. You have earned income of $10,000. Contribution limit is $7,000. In that example, if you have meet all the other rules, you could do the full $7,000 transfer from a 529 plan to a Roth. Let's switch it up though and say that that individual only had $5,000 of income. Roth IRA limit, $7,000, maximum contribution. Income is $5,000. You are now limited to the lower $5,000 number, right? So keep that in mind. It's not just, hey, you get to do this. You have to have earned income, which is important, right? So those are the main rules as we sit here right now. Again, this is brand new. We're likely going to get more context as we go. Like I said, to me personally, the biggest one is that beneficiary, right? What does that do in terms of resetting or not resetting that 15-year clock? Because a lot of 529 plans, you can update the beneficiary, you can transfer money. So let's just say, I'll keep using my kids as an example. You know, I have my 3 boys, they all have their 529 plans. If my oldest son gets a full ride and we don't have to use this 529 plan, I can transfer those funds over to my middle child. And in that example, then, you know, can we convert that to the Roth? Does anything change there? So there's a lot of little rules in there that will likely get better context as we move forward. And on the next section here of the video, I also want to cover just things to keep in mind, you know, using that example there of my boys. Maybe you don't want to do Roth conversions, right? Maybe you want to keep the money for qualified education. Maybe you are transferring it between your kids, but we'll cover that next. But for this section, the main goal is really to cover those rules. Keep an eye on those. As we continue to move forward, talk to your accountant, talk to your advisor, see how you can take advantage of this. Most importantly, like I said, scroll down to the bottom. We'll put a link in there to our flowchart where you can literally do yes and no and walk through all of these. Things to keep in mind, all right? So this is still all brand new. We don't know how that resetting of the beneficiary could really change things here, but also you can move funds around, right? If you want to keep these funds for qualified education expenses, because let's assume that you were the account owner, right? So you set this money aside and you really earmarked it for education. I'll go back to that example I just used in the video here, you know, a minute or so ago. You know, I have my 3 boys. My wife and I have been putting money into their 529 plans for years, and we have many more years to go. Do we want to mark that as education funding as a broad bucket for all 3 of our children? Or was each bucket labeled for each child? And that's something only you and your spouse or significant other can really only come to terms on, right? If it's only for education, maybe you're just transferring money between your kids or kid or grandkids to only help with education expenses. But if you build out silos to say, hey, this one's for my oldest, this one's for my middle, this one's for my youngest, again, using myself as an example, this 529 plan to the Roth could be a really neat thing, right? Because the Roth is going to be a huge benefit. If you get that money into a Roth IRA, you give it decades to grow and compounding interest, and you're not messing with it. Now, keep in mind, the one thing here too, 529 plan, you're the owner. You have full control. When it goes to that Roth, they are the account owner. They're in control. It's the same thing we yell at our clients for in a loving way with their UTMA accounts, right? Once they hit age of majority, you don't have a say anymore. So while you're sitting there thinking, oh, it's their Roth IRA, it's going to help them with their retirement. Oh, yay, they're going to love it. If they find out they have it and they can get to it and they want to pull all that money out for a crazy weekend with their friends, you can't stop that. So also keep that in mind. There is an important difference between a 529 plan where you're the account owner and your child or grandchild is the beneficiary versus a Roth IRA where they own that thing outright. So keep that in mind. So really the main goal here of this last section is to say, hey, is it for education? Is it for that child? You know, is it a broad education fund or is it, you know, built in those silos for each child? And then the biggest thing to keep in mind is 529 plan owner, Roth IRA, they're the owner. So you do lose control once it gets over to that account. I know no one ever wants to think that their kid's going to do the crazy thing, but my job is to tell you that crazy things can happen. And while I hope you don't ever have to see that, it's something to keep in mind, right? So just some things to keep in mind. I'm sure we'll add more to this section as time goes on and we learn more about how these are really playing out, but just a few things to keep in mind there. And there you have it, the 529 plan to Roth IRA transfer, which is officially live now as we have entered the year 2024. I assume that this is going to be a pretty popular topic, not only for this year, but many years going forward. And if you're watching this video and you're thinking, how can I possibly take advantage of this? I would just bring to your attention that 15-year rule is your largest hurdle, right? 15 years is not a short period of time. So if you're thinking that this could benefit you, or you're planning for family planning, or you have a young child or grandkids, that 15-year rule is your largest hurdle. So it doesn't hurt to get an account open. I won't go into the benefits of the 529 plans. There are a lot of benefits to 529 plans. Again, discuss this with your advisor or your tax accountant, but 529 plans are great. Roth IRAs are great. Just because this opportunity is available to you does not mean you should take advantage of it. And I try to note that in there. Again, whether we take advantage of this for education planning or if this is more per child per se, where that Roth could be a huge benefit for them, not only today, but really in the long run. So as always, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you can possibly take advantage of this really neat rule. We don't get new financial planning strategies all that often, so this is a pretty neat one. I was excited for this one to go live, excited to talk through this one with some clients. So hopefully you can take advantage of it. If you have not subscribed to the channel, you can subscribe to the channel now. If you click on this little bell icon, you also get a notification every time we release a new video. We continue to release new content thanks to the great suggestions we're getting, whether it's in the comments or also through the Wealth Kill Weekly email list, where you can then submit that through our Google form. Any ideas or questions that you have, we can build on this. And we hope to have a lot of case studies coming up this year too to really add to the channel. So thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next video.